what changes are coming to iOS and iPadOS 15 at WWDC. Let's talk about it. I'm iCave Dave and I simplify Apple so that everything just works for you, and if you want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours every weekday at 12 UTC, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so that you can join my notification squad, and we have a new member later in the show. But first of all, we are talking about iPadOS 15 specifically, and then also a little bit about iOS and some of the changes that are going to be coming at WWDC in June 2021. Not happy to rest on their laurels, it looks like Apple is set to bring more drastic changes to iOS and iPadOS in 2021's 15th generation software. And it looks like this will start with widgets migrating properly onto the home screen of iPads rather than in the sidebar for the first time. This will allow iPad users to have much richer interfaces and live-ish information about various apps, world clocks, upcoming event reminders from your calendar, and much more right there on your home screen. Apple is also expected to bring touch versions of its Pro apps like Final Cut, Logic, and more, perhaps Motion, to iPadOS, although these may be limited to just iPad Pros, or maybe even just iPad Pros with M-series processors, depending on how well Apple can optimize the software. Also coming with this update to the software on iPhone and most likely across Mac and Apple Watch 2, notifications will have a much more granular control, allowing different apps to have different notifications enabled based on your situation, be that driving, at work, or sleeping. This will be combined with a redesigned lock screen that will give you much better at-a-glance information, as well as which notifications mode you happen to be in. Now, it's not clear whether these modes will be manually switched, timed, or learned by Siri to switch automatically based on your behaviour. And speaking of the lock screen, it's quite possible that the iPhone 13 or 12S, whatever they end up calling it, at least in the Pro models, they're expected to also have variable refresh rate displays, or ProMotion, which goes up to 120Hz, but they're also rumoured to have the potential for an always-on display option, much like the Apple Watch in the most recent iterations. This will likely show notifications along with simple information along the lines of Apple Watch's complications, even when your phone is otherwise locked and switched off. These new features of iOS and iPadOS 15, watchOS 8 and macOS 12 are expected to be introduced on June the 7th, 2021, and by expected, I mean it would be genuinely shocking if Apple didn't introduce these, along with a new name for macOS, most likely to be named after a place in California that looks nice enough to be your Mac's wallpaper. Now, I know I've asked about this one in the past, but again, suggestions in the comments for what you think will be the succeeding name to Big Sur. I kind of think macOS Malibu sounds pretty good. Right, Notification Squad time, and Notification Squad are my most dedicated viewers who are pretty much there whenever we launch a new video. You will get a notification, you will know when we're going live, or when we're putting out a premiere, and you can join the live chat with me on pretty much every video. So, for this video, we have a new member, Eric Boll, but if you want to join the Notification Squad, all you need to do, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, and post a comment down in the comments section using hashtag Notification Squad so that I know who to give a shout out to. Next, we're going to get into some iCave answers. These are your questions, and if you want a question answered, again, use the hashtag iCaveAnswers down in the comments.
Matthew asks, iCave answers, do you think the upcoming 16 inches MacBook Pros may come with a full keyboard? Would love to see a numerical pad in there.
Okay, thank you so much for the first question. I don't see Apple putting a numeric keypad into their MacBook Pros. The 16-inch does probably have enough room, but you would be then moving everything across to one side on the keyboard, and with the image that you used in the tweet where you asked me this, that's got all of those keys, and I've got to say, it doesn't look nice. Like, it shifts the regular keyboard over to the one side, which is not so much of a problem if you are using a external keyboard. That makes absolutely no problems because you can kind of move your keyboard around on the desk. But when you're using a laptop, when you're using a notebook and you've got that built-in keyboard, you're kind of going to be shifted across to the side. I don't think that numeric keypads make a lot of sense in MacBooks. One option is that we have seen Apple's patent for Oled Keycaps on their keys, which at the moment my thoughts are that that will go into a replacement for the touch bar, because it does look like the touch bars are going to be disappearing from the next generation of MacBooks. But then in future, perhaps we could just have Oled Keycaps across the whole of the keyboard, and you could have a numeric keypad option where just it reconfigures some of the keys that are already there into a numeric keypad. that would be another really good use of this kind of technology, where you can reconfigure the keys for what you need to do right now, rather than what you needed to do when the laptop was built. And this has always been part of what Apple loves to do. So when the first iPhone was introduced, the big problem that Steve Jobs and his team saw in existing smartphones, or smart-ish phones at the time, was that the bottom third was covered in a physical keyboard, and you couldn't change those keys once they'd been put there. I think the Oled Keycaps is going to be a precursor to go into a fully kind of solid-state keyboard at some point in the future. I think we have to acknowledge as well that for people like probably most of the people watching right now, we are used to having clicky keys with individual switches under them, and we really like that. But I think there's a lot of people out there, a lot of like younger people, who would probably be absolutely fine with a touchscreen keyboard. Now, it sounds scary, and I know there's going to be comments down in the comment section telling me how awful that would be, but with the haptic feedback and the proper rejection of fingers just laying on these keys, I actually think it could be pretty good. Typing on a full-sized iPad, if it's at the right angle, is actually not bad at all. It's not the same as a regular keyboard, but it also doesn't have the haptics. So I think there could be something that goes on that Apple will just like blow everyone's minds, and will feel like it's a real keyboard, but nothing moves, just like the trackpads. But for what we're talking about right now, I think we're just more talking about those OLED keycaps.
Marcin Kowalczyk asks, iCave answers, as for the design, the chin would be more bearable with the logo. Without it, it's like a slap in the face. Could you speculate why there is no logo on the chin?
Okay, right, this is the biggest controversy of our time. It's very strange that everyone is so offended in a way that Apple hasn't slapped their own branding on the front of a thing. It's like, in general, most companies try and put so much stuff, but Apple has always been quite a minimal company. The next question kind of touches on this as well, but in terms of the reason that it's not there, I think, for one thing, there's a huge amount of TV shows that use Apple equipment and they remove the logos. Not necessarily to avoid promoting Apple, but to avoid the appearance of promoting something tacitly. So they will use Apple hardware, and it's very, very clearly Apple hardware, because you can tell a MacBook from a mile away, regardless of whether it's got an Apple logo on it. And I think what they're actually trying to do here is stop people from having to adjust their hardware, because the look of the iMac with that chin underneath is iconic enough that when this is seen on TV, they won't have to remove any logos. It will just look right. It will look as it's supposed to throughout. They might have to cover up the logo, the Apple logo that's on the back, but that's literally the only logo on the whole thing now. So I think part of it might be just purely that the iMac design has become so iconic with that chin and the aluminium, and the colours are really going to make it stand out, and people are going to notice it, and they're going to kind of look for what this is. So although you're not going to have that logo on the front, it is just this weirdly empty void. Is Apple going to let you engrave your own emojis on the front of it, the way that they're letting you engrave your AirTags? Will there be a lot of aftermarket companies that come out with skins for this? Because people like Dbrand have already come out with a black surround to go on those white bezels that I think look really good. But I know people want to do it, and I was always confused why nobody had done it for the aluminium bezels on the old MacBook Airs as well. The no logo on the chin, I think Apple is just confident enough now that that design is iconic to the point where they don't need to put a logo on there. Would I like a logo there? Yes, I would. Am I bothered that there isn't one there? Not really.
William Phillip asks, iCave answers, Dave, fair criticism on Sir Johnny, but your premise isn't entirely borne out when you look at the ports on rear of the 24 inches iMac. They have removed a ton of ports and drastically reduced the thickness of it. iPhone is also rumored to be headed towards removing the Lightning port, the proverbial slab of glass. Ta.
William, I completely agree with you. I think that Johnny might have had a little bit of a hand in this one, and I think that this design has been ready to go for quite a long time. I don't think that the iMac 2021 design has been designed since Apple Silicon. I think it has been ready to go for a long time, and they've just been waiting to pull the trigger on when they were going to switch over to Apple Silicon. Yes, the reduced number of ports is annoying for people, The U of USB is universal. The whole point of the USB standard is that you can plug anything into it. And I know that there's a huge amount of stuff out there that's got USB-A ports on it, and I know that there's a lot of stuff out there that's got HDMI, but all of these signals can be carried over this port, right? The issue is not with Apple removing those other ports. The issue is with manufacturers of accessories and cables not having that USB port on their equipment yet. Because really, as soon as a new version of USB is released, the idea is that everyone should shift over to the latest standard. I mean, it's not like it's a new port. It's been around for at least 5 years because Apple put it in the 12-inch MacBooks 5 years ago, and all of a sudden, people are like, but where's my USB-A ports? Well, this standard has been around for a long time, and this is the point, is that people need to actually just catch up with it. The iPhone is not designed to be plugged into more accessories. It's not designed to be plugged into a whole bunch of other stuff. The iPhone is its own system. They've got good microphones, they've got good speakers, they've got everything. And anything that isn't, you can attach via Bluetooth. Like, there is very little latency when you use your AirPods with your iPhone. So yes, they have definitely removed a lot of ports from the 24-inch iMac, but I also do think that the reason for this is a universal serial bus. USB is designed to be universal, so it should be on everything. Everyone says, oh, I need to get a dongle. No, you don't. For most things, you can get a cable which will work with both ends. It might be that the hard drive or, the external hard drive or SSD that you've got comes with a USB-A cable. You can quite easily get a cable that goes from USB-C that can plug into your Mac to whatever it is on the other end, because that's how USB is supposed to work. So you don't have to have dongles. It's just that if you want to use the cheap cable that they provided with your accessory that still has a legacy port on the other end, then yes, you might need an adapter. But if you are willing to just change your cables over, then you don't need all of these dongles. You don't need all of these extra accessories. I do agree that the SD card reader is a bit of a weird one, but you can get a USB card reader for about $4 or $5, and you can plug that in and you are done. And to be completely honest, if you plug in a USB card reader, it's definitely going to be easier. Whatever it is that you have that has a cable on it is going to be a lot easier to use than reaching around to the back of your iMac and trying to plug something into there. Now, should they put a USB card, should they put an SD card reader into the side of it? Yes, that would be great, but then they've also got to make the bezels bigger, because if you put it into the side of it, then you're going to impinge on the screen, and the new iMac is basically designed to be as thin as the screen, and then the computer is held in that chin. But at the same time, there are very, very few people who buy an iMac who will also use an SD card reader with it. It seems to a lot of YouTubers, who are the kind of people that generally complain about this loudly, that everyone needs an SD card reader. Not everyone does. The need for SD card readers has massively reduced in the past, let's say 5 years, because more and more people are using their smartphone, which is a much better camera than it ever has been, and as a result of that, less people are buying DSLRs. The market for DSLRs and higher end cameras, and certainly for point and shoot cameras, which definitely used to have SD cards in them, people just don't take a point and shoot with them anymore. It's either the very high end with a DSLR, or you use your phone. And I think that's the big difference that people aren't acknowledging. Yes, people used to plug in SD cards, but for the past at least 5 years, those point and shoot cameras are just gone. They're just gone. They don't exist. The only people that want SD card readers are photographers and YouTubers, pretty much. And proper, filmmakers. But again, when you get to proper filmmaking, you're probably using, red cartridges or something along those lines. If you're going, really high-end, most people use their iPhone as their camera now. Sorry. That's what you're watching me on right now.
FB London asks, iCave answers, do you think OBS will ever come to iPad Pro?
That is a really interesting one. So OBS, for anyone that doesn't know, is open broadcast software. It's a free piece of software that you can use for live streaming, and it's what I've used for my live streams in the past. An edit studio that you can use for live streams. And actually, yeah, it could work quite well for iPad as long as you can connect other cameras to it wirelessly. You can, of course, use the iPad's own internal camera, but then because you're looking at the iPad to run OBS, you're going to have to use the FaceTime camera, which is not going to be as high quality as the back cameras, so that doesn't make as much sense. But I do actually think the interface on there could be quite good. You could have like a fairly small preview. You could have your scenes set up in there exactly as you would on a desktop. I don't see why you couldn't bring it to it. The difficult thing is that OBS, because it's open source, is kind of created by people, and if there's not the demand for it, then it won't happen. If there's a compelling use case for it, it will. But again, it comes down to the developers and not down to Apple.
Jim McGinnis Boylan asks, iCave answers, hi Dave, some of the details about the Apple Watch Series 7 have been released. Namely, it will have a blood glucose monitor. Have you got any?
So I'm going to assume that you were asking if I have any more details on that design. Apple Watch Series 7 is going to be an interesting one, I think. I think we are going to get a redesign, so we're going to get a physical different body to it this time, which will be nice. If we look back at the Apple Watch, it's been a 3-year update cycle, really, in terms of the form factor. I think there was some slight differences between Series 0 and Series 1, 2, and 3, but they were very, very minor. And Series 1 essentially came out at the same time as Series 2, just with the updated processor, so that it had a little bit more power, a little bit more grunt, and it was a little bit more responsive. So we had the 38 and 42mm sizes for the displays in the first generations, up to Series 3, and then with Series 4, we got 40 and 44mm, but still with the same strap sizes, because we expanded within what we had and put rounded corners onto those displays. We've now had 3 years of the first design, 3 years of the second design, and Series 7 should be due for a redesign, and I think, as a few people have pointed out, that it will get those flat sides. It was something that I thought of, I think, back in about August time. One of the first conversations I had with Apple Tomorrow on Twitter was me sending him my kind of terrible SketchUp of this Apple Watch design with the flat sides, which he then rendered out and made it look much better than I did. So I think that will be part of it. It will have a new physical design, fingers crossed, with the flat sides, so it fits in with the rest of Apple's new range. But in terms of blood glucose monitoring, it's something that I have a little bit more skin in the game for now, I guess, because my 6-year-old son has got type 1 diabetes, which is where his pancreas just basically can't make insulin. He actually wears a sensor monitor on the back of his arm, and I scan that with my iPhone at the moment. I would absolutely adore it if Apple has created a way to measure blood glucose through the skin without having to have a physical sensor, because right now we have to basically put a needle through his arm that leaves a filament in there that can measure the blood glucose. If Apple has got a good way of measuring it that is accurate enough compared to what we're using right now, I would love to buy him an Apple Watch and just be done with it, because changing these sensors every 2 weeks is unpleasant for him. But that being said, it's once every 2 weeks rather than 6 to 8 or more blood glucose checks a day with a finger prick. So it would be awesome if they could do this. I'm not confident that they can.
Nick Felsted asks, iCave answers, do you think that the larger size iMac won't have the chin? Will it have a slightly thicker screen to incorporate the computer hardware, and the thicker, more high-res, better screen? Will this look a bit more like the renders we originally saw from John Prosser?
So this is the kind of $64,000 question. Will the bigger iMac not have a chin? I'll be honest, I don't think we're going to see a chinless iMac. Is that going to disappoint some people? Probably. When we think about this realistically, there were no leaks that said it was going to be chinless. We heard that it was going to look more like an iPad Pro on a stick, which it kind of does. If you look at it from the side, even the angle, the default angle of the display is the same as the iPad Pro when it's in the Magic Keyboard. If you look at pretty much everything else, like the proportions of it look very much like the iPad Pro. Do I think it will have no chin? No, I don't. I think it will have a chin. I think it might still be slightly thicker than the current 24-inch iMac, but that won't be because it needs the space to put the computer itself behind the screen. It will purely be because of the size of it, and you need to kind of scale it proportionally so that it's got enough strength, because when it's so thin, I don't think they can go much thinner and still have the rigidity that is required for the glass display to be mounted in it. When we say the renders that we originally saw from John Prosser, from what I understand, he just knew that there were going to be colours. I don't think he actually had much insight into what the computer itself would look like. So thank you so much for watching. That's the end of our show today. Feel free to leave me another question down in the comments section using hashtag #iCaveAnswers. I would love to answer your questions during the notification squad. I've told you how to do it, and thank you so much for watching.